Well, the cash-strapped ANC yesterday told media houses they have to pay for space if they want to cover the National Elective Conference. It's unclear, though, how media companies will go about doing this, with the National Editors Forum saying it will meet with the ANC to get clarity. Media Monitoring Africa Director William Bird joins us now for more on the story. William, seems like the first time that we've had a scenario like this, media having to pay to cover particularly a conference as big as the ANC's elective conference?
Yeah, this just looks like one of those poorly conceived ideas that they kind of pulled out of a Christmas cracker a little bit too early and thought, ooh, let's see if we can try this to try and make ends meet. It's a poorly thought through idea. It's impractical. It's unreasonable. It's pointless. It would set an incredibly dangerous precedent. I'm not quite sure what they were thinking, and the kind of initial comments and the backtracking we're seeing now is endemic of the fact and symptomatic of just how poorly conceived this idea was.
Let's talk about the dangers that this would actually pose for the media if it were to be implemented as has been suggested.
So, I think there are a couple of things wrong with it. The first is that there's this idea that because the media are there, they need to, give them food and all of these resources. They don't need to do that. The media should be there. If they're going to be there, they're going to need to eat and drink as they would on any other day. They don't need to pay for them. What they do need to do is give them space. If they don't want to provide them resources like Wi-Fi, etc., they don't need to. There's nothing obliging them to do so. I think that there's been this kind of history of providing them with all of these things, and now that they're seeing they've got no money, they're going, oh, actually, we don't know if we can afford this. So, but the reality is there's no obligation on them to do that. The reason it's a bad idea is especially when you look at the idea that Mr. Mabe was quoted as saying, we want the media to meet us halfway. We're going to meet with their media and advertising people, as though somehow you can do some kind of a friendly deal about covering the ANC conference. This is the media aren't there to be buddies with the ANC. They're there to report and make sure that as members of the public, we can watch any number of diverse media to get a good sense of what's happening in the ANC leadership conference. Yes, it's an ANC political thing, but this is likely to determine who may be our next president. It's likely to determine all sorts of things for what happens within the ANC. So there's a clear and fundamental public interest. So the moment you start saying to media, you need to pay in order to cover this, it says to media, right, that, somehow we're going to start to offer you privileged access. They're talking about packages. It's about buying off the news in a fairly fundamental way without calling it brown envelope journalism.
And that's really, I think, the biggest problem, William, because ultimately what a suggestion like that does is that it closes off access, especially looking at an industry that has been financially drained, many newsrooms just struggling to get by. Effectively, it would be those with the biggest pockets who are able to not only have access into the room, but who are able to get interviews that others would not have the opportunity of doing, and that in and of itself is limiting in as far as diversity is concerned.
Yeah, it's clear that they're thinking that the media are no different to those who are wanting to pay to their big business dinner. And actually the media have a fundamentally different role to those who want to go and, hobnob with the senior executives and elites within the ANC. And they're fundamentally different things. The media are there to report in a balanced, fair and accurate manner on what happens at the elective conference. They're not there to be buddies with people. They're not there to be paying in order to cover that conference. Because again, as you say, the moment you go down that rail, then the next thing they're going to say, okay, well, the next party that decides to have it, they say, well, we're only going to give media access to those media who can pay us this amount of money, and they have this particular, views on our political party. And again, it just opens a door that you really, really don't want to be opening. It opens a door to this idea that you pay for media coverage and that you pay for access to these officials. The reality is, they say, oh, well, there are these closed sessions that people can't get access to. But we know that those things, they leak like sieves. There are people in the meeting sitting there live WhatsApping journalists on the outside anyway. So it's, in this period where you've got digital media, where you've got people with mobile devices, for them to be suggesting that you need to pay in order to have access and get packages for covering the conference, it's just fundamentally outrageous, and it's a blatant misconception of the role of news media in covering their events.
Media Monitoring Africa's Director William Bird will leave it there for tonight.